this time. Cynthia, tell me about you in the journey of the maiden, the mother, and the crone. In the in each of those chapters, I feel we have at least two um, events that happen to us that make profound impact into who we are. Could you name two incidents that perhaps in your childhood that stand out to you? And all of this is leading into our interview, okay?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this time together and your listeners. So, sure. My name is Cynthia Mazzaferro, and as a young child, I was one of five young girls. My parents got divorced when I was 7. And so each one of us was affected very much differently. But for me, as the second oldest, it was about how can a man love all of us and just walk out of our lives and abandon us. So for me, that was a very pivotal moment in my childhood that really impacted me throughout my life. And not until really 25 years into my marriage did I actually come to peace with that and resolve that. And we can talk a little bit later about that, but that was definitely one moment that was very instrumental and actually very detrimental because it really created some negative mindset for me. And then
What
I
age?
remember a very young girl, probably like 7 or 8, 9, 10, something like that, where I would always just put my hand up to the sky, kind of like this, and I would see this beautiful sun rays coming through my fingers. And
Oh, yes.
just revel at the energy that would come from the sun, and I would marvel at my hand that it was so amazing and that I knew that it would do really amazing things in my life.
Very cool. And so that made you aware of what about yourself?
Well, I just knew that I was going to touch. I mean, there was just something so profound about my hands that it was really going to touch people's lives. I felt the energy that my hand had that we have, and that I kind of then decided to go into medicine. I went to become a physical therapist and using my hands, doing a lot of therapy with hands. I was more of a manual therapist.
Ah,
I liked the machines. I liked touching and really connecting with people. And during the next segment of my life, when I went into my career, I actually loved working with individuals and realizing that as I was doing rehabilitation with them, that there was always a connection to their outer world, not just their physical ailments, their injuries, and that I was often inspiring and empowering them to realize that they had greatness, that they could overcome their struggles in their life. And what I also started to see was that even though we were rehabilitating them and getting stronger, that when they resolved some of their conflict and struggles in their personal lives, that their symptoms would also disappear. So it was just a wonderful connection to realize that when we are uncomfortable, when we're struggling and having negative energies that we hold within ourselves, that they eventually come out in a physical way. And so we need to connect deep within ourselves to find the areas that are holding us back, limiting us our joy, preventing us from walking forward and really um, addressing our passions, learning and experiencing and growing both spiritually and in our physical being in a way where we can touch the world and really find joy in our life.
so let me get this straight. At what age were you when you started realizing you had healing energies?
Well, I didn't realize I had healing energies when I was very young, but I knew there was something amazing about my hands. And
Hmm.
so I just said, how can I use my hands? And I really loved people. I loved healing and went into physical therapy as the more kind of, we all go to college, or many of us go to college. What am I going to take up? What's my profession? And it was very much aligned with my desire to work with people and heal. And then I also owned my own business, which was a business that went into industry and did ergonomics, which is a fancy word about reducing stress in the work environment to optimize, to prevent work injury, and to educate. I educated thousands of people in all different industries, making guns, working with men. How do you lift up the steel without creating back injuries? All the way down to cologne, putting cologne into bottles and packaging it in Crabtree and Evelyn's baskets to sell, all different types of industries. And it was all about teaching and empowering. So throughout my whole life, I've really been teaching and inspiring, not realizing that my life has brought me to a point more in my mature life. I don't consider myself a crone yet, but as a mother, and raising two men that turned out fabulous. And one was actually an Olympic trialist when he actually dove off the platform diving. And he actually went to the Olympic trials for the United States and competed
Wonderful.
across the world. So I've been empowering and inspiring my own family as well as thousands of people around the world. So it's just been amazing. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
I guess I always consider the crone stage or the wise woman stage beginning
Uh,
sometime around 50. And so my experience with women that are self-employed, or what I call the Sarah Moses, who have reached the point where they want to get out of the political arena of the corporate scene, and then find themselves in a gentle warrior capability. And it sounds like to me that you have basically found your Sarah Moses journey. That's the way I put it. But anyway, I also wanted to ask you, um, you believe within each of us is a personal intuitive soul message that can help us focus and take action steps in our journey. Please tell me what or where you feel this soul message comes from, in your opinion.
Sure. Our intuition, in my opinion, is actually the voice, the wisdom that comes from within. It's your soul, not your skin and bones, the soul, your spiritual spark of light and energy, vibration that wants to connect with you. And I also believe there's a divine connection to the heavenly source, if you want to refer to as God, the creator, the universe, whatever your usage of word is that is appropriate. But I believe there's a direct connection between this greatest wisdom and the wisdom we have within ourselves that needs to come and to be expressed and experienced. And some people call it our sixth sense. We have our five physical sense, right? Our eyes, our vision, our hearing, our taste, touch. But we also have another sense, and that sense is not something we can actually hold on to, and it's tangible, but it still exists. And that's our intuition. That's the message from our soul, which is what we really are. It's ourself. And so it's always communicating with us. And when you start to learn to have that intimate relationship, a better connection and ability to trust it and to understand from it, then we can actually then open up to seeing what's the better path that we're supposed to be taking, what's the greater wisdom that's being offered. And it helps us to go through our journey and to make the right paths and decisions that will be best fulfilling for us and the greatest good for the world. So it's amazing that we have this ability, and when you start to connect to that, there's also what I refer to as the power within us. There's a strength. There's a confidence of knowing yourself, this soul, that you realize that you have this power, this divine power of light and energy and expansiveness that allows us to use our gifts, our spiritual gifts, our passions, those seeds of desire that you want to fulfill. And when you connect with all this, when you see your beautiful self, your soul, and you recognize your power inside of you, not power over someone else, but the power within each of us, that we can do amazing things in the world. And that's why I wrote my book, Powerful Beyond Measure, to help people to see their greatness, to see the amazing things they can do within themselves, and to eliminate the pain that we carry from our past that is always trying to imprint us and negatively impact us to prevent us from pain. But it's so not where we want to be. We need to step into our greatness and see this amazing self that we really are.
Cynthia, how do, first of all, we shut off the negative analytical voice that many of us believe is almost louder than sometimes the positive inner voice?
Right. And so let's talk about that. This is a really great understanding. And our brain has really one or two basic functions. Our brain is to remember what's happened. And so it's kind of like your database in your computer, your memory storage tank that remembers everything. And then your brain is also there to try to protect you. So anytime you've experienced pain, failure, disappointment, your brain has put that memory file closer to the front so it can resource it. So it can reference it and remind you that when you're going to start a new task, remember when you failed, remember when people laughed at you, or when you didn't feel you were smart enough, or the results weren't what you wanted. And so we have these negative thoughts, and it's our brain's way of trying to protect us, to insulate us, to isolate us from that future pain. But in that ability, what happens is we actually isolate ourselves. We create these wonderful walls that protect us. And kind of like an armor, that shield that the warrior holds so that they're not going to get the arrow thrown at them. So we insulate ourselves. We isolate the pain away from us. And by doing that, we also restrict life to enter our world, and which brings joy and happiness and love. And of course, there's sadness and grief and loss too. But what it does is it allows us to participate. It allows us to go into that space with the understanding that you can achieve, you can succeed, you can step into risk and opportunity and challenges with a much wonderful energy and a perceived outcome that will give you a great result. And how many times has your brain ever told you, right, Anne Marie, that, oh, you're so awesome, go do this? Our brain does tell us that, right? It always says, well, that's a great idea, Anne Marie, but remember, what if you can't pay for it? What if people don't come and listen to your radio show, for example? It plants all those seeds of doubt. And in doing so, it really could, if you allow it, could negatively impact you within your soul, within your inner health, and then that also comes out in your physical world and what comes to you from the universe. So if you're wanting a new relationship, a new partner in your world, you want a new job, a new house, new opening up a new business, you want to be healthier. All of these things are attainable, but we need to not be driven by our mind, which is always holding us back. We need to follow forward using our intuition, the voice of our soul, which is also connected to the greater wisdom that's always propelling you forward to achieve success and optimize that.
So, based on your own life journey, you feel that you have learned how to shut off that analytical voice and reach into your mission in through your book and through your presentations. Um, Tell me a little bit about some of your presentations that you have, because they
Great.
sound very interesting.
Thank you. And I agree with you. I guess I kind of refer to the word crone because, and I like the way you define it as a place in life and your continuum, whatever that age might be, of wisdom. And yes, you're right. There was a time in my life when I kind of got hit over the head in my marriage where my husband walked down one day and said, I love you, but I can't live with you. It was like, oh my gosh, my past was repeating again. And it was like the same perception I had of my father walking out of me. And so it was really a huge knock in my life to realize that this was an energy, this was an expectation, this was a negative thought that lived and breathed within myself. And so when I had to understand that and realize that this is something I'm allowing to live and control and be present in my life, then I could make changes about it. And one of the things that happened in my life that allowed me to see the true wisdom was actually I went to an event where James Van Praagh, and if you know him, he's a medium. He speaks with those that have transitioned on, deceased ones. And I was there out of 3,000 people with my husband and a friend. And what would happen is James Van Praagh would be on the stage and he'd listen to this spirit that would come to him. And he would talk to the spirit, and the spirit would say certain things. And one person would stand up in the audience. Well, he got my attention. It was my stepfather that who came through. And he really wasn't my father because I was an adult woman, but he was my stepfather because my mother remarried. And remember, all my life, what have I been looking for is a father figure to say, "You're wonderful. You're daddy's little girl. You can do no wrong. You're amazing." Dot dot dot. And so once he said things to get me to stand up, which was amazing in itself, which is in my book. But for brevity, I'll just go right to the source of what he said. The very first words were, "You're perfect just the way you are, and not to change for anyone." Now, I was going through a marital upheaval at the moment, although he loved me. And I was trying to change. I was trying to be something he would want, that I would be the wife he wanted, the person he wanted, so he would stay. And I was becoming more miserable and unhappy with who I was and confused with who I was. And it was like finally, this fatherly image, this fatherly words of wisdom came through, and it was like so profound. And subsequent to that, I actually think, was it really Bill, my stepfather, although he defined himself as Bill? I also wonder if it was also a heavenly father saying to each one of you listening to this call that we are all perfect energy beings, even with our flaws, and that we shouldn't change for anyone. And so it allowed me to continue on my journey of wisdom, my own self discovery, which allowed me to write my book, Powerful Beyond Measure, and to speak all over the world and through all different types of forums and presentations and venues to empower people to see their beautiful divine self. And that when you embrace this energy of who you are and understanding, yes, your past has helped you to be who you are today. It's molded and shaped you, but it doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to limit you. It's part of your path that allows you to move forward to really step into, as Anne Marie says, almost that crone stage of wisdom, of understanding what do I need to learn as a soul? What do I need to do in my future? How can I impact the world? How can I bring my seeds of passion into creation? So it's been an amazing journey. And my presentations are all over the place. I do many, many healings. People that will come and say, I have shoulder problems, back problems, knee problems, all different types. Cancer, people who have had strokes where they have these blinding eye pain where they can't see, they have to be in a dark room, all different types. And they just go away. So it's just amazing. And so much of it is an energetic debris that lies within us, that we hold on to this pain Whether it's 3 hours ago, you had an argument and you hold on to this energy. It probably is repetition. It's a form of energy that you've already been carrying, your past. And it's going to repeat until you decide to resolve it and to heal it and release it and say, no more. I'm not going to carry on this energy, this expectation in my life anymore. So it's really an amazing process of self discovery, inspiration, empowering yourself to realize that you are an amazing spark of light and love, and you have so much to do and give to this world.
I have to bring up something because as an intuitive worker myself, one of the largest complaints I have from spiritual women is that in their quest to try, or spiritual men, I can't say it's just a woman thing, spiritualists in general, is that as they expand and as they start to listen to that inner voice and they start to change, the partners are going, huh? And oftentimes it creates this chaos within a marriage as one still tries to not change the person, to keep the person from changing spiritually and hanging on to what they were when they were still listening to the analytical voice. And how would you say to be able to keep your, and this may be not at all with your book, but just as you as a person, how would you hang on to a relationship, a marriage, a loved one that is a little bit baffled by the fact that someone is spiritually tuning into inner message and that inner message is changing them from what they married?
Right. It's a really great question. I love that question. So for me initially, and then I'm going to expand on with what you're talking too. But for me, I was always, my husband would have walked the world for me. He loved me. He really did love me. And we're still married, by the way, too. But I was always needing him to confirm me, to be that father figure, kind of, even though he's not my husband, he was my husband. I wanted this confirmation from people in general, confirming me, saying I'm great, even though I felt great inside. I was an extrovert. I was a confident woman. I owned my own business. That wasn't it. But if he said something like, "Oh, you look lovely today. I like that dress," I might say, "Well, you didn't notice. I just went to the hair today. How come you didn't say anything about my hair?" So it's almost like the poor pig couldn't say enough, you know? And so I was
Guy.
always looking more, but it really wasn't because I was looking more from him. It was more because there was this past that I never resolved. I was still looking for the father to tell me, but I was perpetuating in my life. So the question I think that you're asking, and I think it's really important, is I really believe that people are in our lives for a reason. Now, my husband is a doer. He is a physical doer. He brings me up a cup of tea every morning in bed, and I get to recline and kind of wake up slowly and do my whatever meditations, reading, whatever. And I get that luxury. Now, for some of you might think, oh, that's really amazing. For me, I'm not so much about a person doing to feel loved. I'm a person that needs to hear the verbal because of what I didn't have. And that's how I feel loved. But what I needed to learn was that people show love in different ways. And instead of looking at he's not doing enough of the way I wanted, I needed to look at all the amazing things he and other people in my life were showing love the way they do. And so, what I really believe is that I'm actually glad he wasn't a verbally expressive person, because if he was, then I wouldn't have learned my lesson. And he's a Catholic and he's an accountant. And so when I would do Reiki, and I was a Reiki master, and he promoted that, he supported me. He never condemned me to doing that, because that was kind of unusual for a Catholic person to understand that. But when he started seeing the results and he started to continue to see my growth and expansion of me and feeling really confident in myself and not needing from him, that he also has changed. He has become more expressive with myself and others, um, and even more emotionally expressive. You know, he came from parents as well that were argumentative and Irish, and she was just all yelling, 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 and didn't really show the softer side of emotional support. So I encourage people when they are coming up this wisdom, however they're growing spiritually, and if that starts to change and impact your relationships, to realize that that doesn't mean that you have to grow apart. Although there are times, sometimes we do need to leave because they no longer serve us. But I encourage you to look at the relationship and as to what can they do and support you in your growth process, but what are you also bringing to their growth potential? You're in each other's lives for a reason. And, nothing stays stagnant in life, right? We don't energy is not static. It's always moving and intermingling with us. You stand by a toxic person, you feel, oh, depleted. You stand by someone excited and motivated, you feel uplifted. So I encourage you to realize that your relationships also shift. There's a ebb and flow to it. And I encourage you to look at your relationships. What is holding you back? What's causing the friction? How can this be resolved? And your enlightenment or your spiritual growth in self does not have to mean an end to parts of your life. It should bring greater value. And I think that as a spiritual intuitive, what I often find, and maybe you find this too, is that often what I say to people is when you speak to others and you share your wisdom, listen to that wisdom because it's often wisdoms that you need to be hearing yourself and things that you need to be changing and correcting in your own life. And it's very powerful. I actually have people tape themselves. And then when they listen back and they're like, oh my gosh, I really need to hear exactly what I'm saying. So it's kind of an awakening moment. It was for me, it was an awakening moment. I had no idea that I was actually impacting people. I was like, it was a perspiration that I was giving off. Like if someone would say something to me, I still wasn't satisfied. Whatever it might have been, there was always a need for more. And so I encourage you, and in my book, the first third of the book is that self-discovery. What is it that holds you back? That's that imprinting, that perception that you took on at a very young age that I promise you is repeating itself in your life. If you
I
didn't trust your parents, you're not trusting your relationships now. It continues on.
I would have to interject here that I am a spiritualist over 40 years now that I've been giving readings and radio with Achieve Radio since 2010. I am married to a Republican NASCAR beer drinking Republican. And our typical Sunday is him with a beer in his hand watching NASCAR while I take psychic calls, through different places. And we have learned to resolve our issues pretty much because I realize, you know what? I'm a spiritualist. I have certain definite feelings, but that doesn't make me perfect. He's a Republican. He has different ideas. That doesn't make him perfect. And somewhere, and I say maybe the whole world needs to know this, we can all be different. And it doesn't have to mean that we have to look at our beliefs, our way of looking at things like it's the be all end all. And it to me, that is when I finally realized you can live with your opposite. You can live with someone if the past life or the old soul connection is there. The spark is there. For us, it's being animal rescuers. That's our children. That's our thing. But and coffee. We love coffee. But the thing is, the thing is that it is possible. So I like what you said there. So
Yeah.
you believe within each of us, there are certain steps on our journey. So first of all, what positive steps can we take? Like you said, there's 3 steps. What are those 3 steps? We all want to read your book, but to fulfill our goals and dreams.
Right. This is so paramount. And I think it's really critical and what really allows my book to be an instrument to um, be the miracle that unfolds wherever you are in your spiritual journey. Because we're not, again, that static person. We change, and our emotions and our how we're feeling, what we're doing in our life will constantly change. And so this is a book you can read over and over again. But in the book, the first third, again, is exploring your past, easing your pain. We can all look to our past and say, oh, I remember when someone bullied me, or I lost a job, or I didn't get the promotion. There's always some aspect. And so when you learn to understand, I like to use Steve Jobs' commencement address at Stanford University, where he says, connect the dots and you get to see the future. Well, we all remember those little books. You connect the dot from number 1 to number 2, number 3. And before you get to the end, you then have a picture of a bird or a house or whatever. So what you're going to do is you actually explore that past. You're not have to relive it. I'm not a psychiatrist. You don't have to go and do that, but you actually know it because your mind's been playing that memory, that imprint over and over again. But you're going to realize the depth of it and to identify and articulate in just 1 or 2 words. For me, abandonment, abandonment and wanting confirmation. Those were my 2 things. And so once I could identify and articulate it with clarity and specificity, then I could then talk about it and work on it in the present. And in the present is exploring yourself, learning to love yourself, see that soul, to see that spiritual connection, that divinity. You are a divine spark of light. There's no way you can change that. But when you start to see that beautiful soul that you are, then you can start to frame that articulated, limited belief to say, no longer is that true. To release the emotional component, the energy that resides around it. It actually has taken up residence in your body somewhere. So someone that feels powerless will most likely have stomach issues. They might have diverticulitis, they might have hernias or irritable bowel or Crohn's disease, things like that, because that's where our power station is. If you, so just to continue on, so depending where your energy, that emotional debris resides within your body, you're affecting the health internally, which will eventually come out in a physical disability or symptom or condition. And so when you start to, in the present, because we can only live in the now, right this moment, if you're listening to this radio station here, hopefully you're engaged. Hopefully it's really connecting. And you can say, okay, I can only live in this moment. I'm going to be fully engaged. I'm not listening to the television. I'm not doing emails. I'm not looking at my text. I am engaged. I'm choosing to really impact this moment, to be fully experiencing it. And so then you can change how you look at life. And there's lots of different practices and tools to show you how to change how we live in the present and releasing that energy that resides within that negative self-limiting belief. And then the last third of the book is exploring your future. It's actually envisioning the future because we can't ever attain a future in the future. It's something that you bring to the present, right? And so in my book, you'll hear lots of examples of stories of other people as well as my own about how my book became an envisioning, which I always kind of knew I'd probably write, but it was actually how the universe brought things into my life that propelled that forward. And when you start to connect with your inner wisdom, the intuition, that's voice of self and beyond, then you're able to bring things into your life. And it's actually aligned with what I call your soul lesson. You decided to incarnate, to be born into this physical world for a reason, for a lesson, for really fulfilling a purpose, a karma, a dharma, whichever words you want to use, they all resonate and mean the same thing. And so when you become one and aligned with what your passion is, for me, it's empowering and inspiring people around the world to see their power within themselves, their greatness that allows them to be powerful beyond measure. And you can never be powerful beyond measure if you don't see the greatness that lies within yourself. So it's really instrumental in that it's a step in an understanding, a self-discovery, and through that process you empower yourself. And kind of like what you said, Anne Marie, that when you realize I'm doing my intuitive calls, my readings on the Sunday, and I can look over and love my husband that he is enjoying watching the races. My husband likes to watch the race too. He doesn't drink the beer anymore, but I think there's a message there too, because as spiritual workers, we have a very deep passion for helping others. And as much as that's so profound and so important, and I absolutely love doing it, I also try to find really what's important too is also it's not always about everyone else. It's finding joy and spending joyful time with people in my life that's important to me. And so I purposely try to make time, like for you, to go over and snuggle. Let me see the last 20 laps, the most important of the race, to experience that joyful moment with him because it's a passion he loves. It's something he loves. And that by you doing that, you're acknowledging he's seeing that this is important to him and that you can see the joy in it, thriving and finishing to that finish line, which is what you do with your readings. It's helping people to propel them forward. And so really you're both enjoying the journey, right? The journey of how many miles they're doing and coming to the end and having to navigate with cars around you and having your own skill set to navigate that race, right? And it's all actually very much symbolic. I love symbolism because I find that what happens in our life and signals and deja vu and all these synchronicities that come to us, to me, they become profound messages that really resonate with what we need to see also within ourselves and how we can grow from that. It's just, I just find that connection so powerful.
Um, the book is about feeling powerful inside and out and how that can change us. When you say powerful, in what way do you define that word? What is powerful? I mean, what is powerful to you?
It's a great question because when I first decided to use that word in my title of the book, I didn't want people to feel that power means to to be powerful over someone. Powerful means I have to rise to a certain level to be powerful. Powerful is a presence of you understanding your greatness. It's not greatness over someone. It's just the greatness within ourselves, like Mother Teresa, the woman who hugs, who loves unconditionally, right? She is this
Mm,
small little 4 foot something woman,
mhm.
not a big statue, not
One of
powerful.
my favorite people.
Yes, not powerful by what we typically would refer and define as powerful, right? But but she is the energy and the magnitude and the strength within herself to know her passion, to follow it, to live fully in the moment is a beautiful, powerful statement of love towards ourselves and towards the world, whether it be animal, human, um, arts, writing, poetry, music, dance. I mean, everything. When you embrace it powerfully, you can experience the joy and the happiness with it. And instead of seeing the lacking of something not being there, you see the fulfillment, the abundance that is present. It just takes you to a different place. And when I speak at venues and I'm doing workshops and presentations, people are always animated. They always say, you speak with such passion. It's like, and I love that we're on video because people hopefully can see it out of me, that when you are aligned with this, with understanding, almost like you can palpate the energy of who you are, this vibration, this energy, and you see it and you love this, who you are, then people can see it. And it just becomes contagious and infectious, and they're drawn to you. I see people when I go to libraries and I present, or this meeting and that, and people kind of lean in like they can't get enough of me. They're almost drinking from my words and the energy. And so when you're in that flow of who you are and what you're supposed to be doing and how you're impacting the world, think of the wind coming and you're part of that wind. It's propelling you forward. The water, the tide is pushing you forward. And that's what's happened to me. I mean, I will say to my husband, I'm on miracle number 12 today, or on miracles number 7. And these things just come to me because the universe is supporting me, because I am fully embracing my beautiful divine strength and power and support in what I'm doing. And when you're walking that path, the world becomes a place that is beyond your mental conception. You can't even envision it. You know how they make vision boards? This is a place where you cannot even go because it is beyond your imagination, because that's how magnificent it really is.
That was my next question. As a transpersonal hypnotherapist as well, a lot of dealing with past tragedies and abuse and the childhood experiences that traumatized was reframing. And I wondered how much of being able to access into our inner voice is also about learning how to take a bad situation, reframe it, see it in a different way that benefits our future, and being life teachers, or being able to take it and to, like you say, become impassioned by the very things that traumatized us. But instead of seeing it as poor, poor me, reframe it and see it as a mission to try to overcome it and help others through the same thing. So, how much of this also, you said, is it real or an imagined feeling? How much of it is also about reframing past situations with a, like they say, reframing is taking an old crappy situation, putting a new frame on it, and giving it an exciting new look. How much of what you're saying is also about doing that?
Well, there is a component to that. And the way I refer to it in my book is that normally we react. Again, our brain knows, okay, here's a similar event, okay? Someone's laughing at me. So you feel that people don't think you're important, or that you're, or should be taken seriously. So if it happens again, you react. So either you have created a behavior mechanism over the years of, you're going to yell and you're going to say, take me serious, and you may be very verbal. Other people may have created a behavior mechanism where I'm going to retract. I'm not going to tell them. Or you think they're laughing at you, which they might not be, but your perception is. So there's a framing of what you react to as a trigger or as a stimulus, that you're going to react to it. And then you bring up the word reframing. I choose to take it as the word, which I agree with you, it is a reframing, but I choose to say it's the response. How do you want to respond to the stimuli, the trigger? So it's not so much reframing, because reframing is how you would want to look at it, but you are reframing it. But then you have to, during the reframing process, is decide, how do I want to respond to it? So that I'm not reacting and doing the same repetition behavior and getting the same results. So you want to create a new response that is positive, that's creating a shift in what you've always perceived as the trigger and the negative influence. It's not there. So that's the reframing you were talking about, which I think is great, Anne Marie. But then the more important part, I think, after it is not just the reframing, is how do I now respond to it? And that's really important. That's where the empowerment part comes, right? Because when you decide how you're going to respond, then you're empowering yourself with action steps to create a new outcome, right? And that's what we want. We want to create a outcome that's going to bring us success, abundance, feeling happy, joyful, healthy, all the words, any words you want to put in there, that's the outcome we want.
For
So
each spiritualist that I know, or each person I know that is on a spiritual journey, and there are people that'll spend thousands just on a class to learn how to be happy. Many of them will find themselves drinking in all that is said and then relapse back into old behavior. How do you tell someone that has done really, really well on their journey and becoming, as you said, a person who believes within that their hidden potential to claim their power is believing personally the journey is something they deserve? What do you tell them when they become depressed because they relapse back into old behavior? How do they deal with themselves then?
right. Well, typically, for most of my clients and people who work with me, I really very much believe there's that emotional, energetic energy that resides with what's causing them to revert back to depression. They have not put out that fire. So kind of think of, you put out the campfire and the coals are smoldering, and all you have to do is add a trigger, add a more oxygen to it, and the fire, goes ablaze again, right? So if you haven't completely resolved that, so for me, resolving the pain of my father leaving, I used to cry when I would just talk about my father, oh, he wasn't there. Now I am actually rejoiceful. I actually have shifted that whole energy where if he had stayed, he was a military man, he was very controlling and strict, I would have been squished, would have been controlled, I would have felt powerless. And it would have changed who I was, and it would have changed the whole outcome of my personal soul growth and where I'm supposed to be today, empowering and inspiring people. So learning to totally resolve and really diffuse the emotional energy around it, around that catalyst, is so important, because as long as you feed it, it will continue to grow. There's a very famous Cherokee, um, Native America type fable of two wolves, and which wolf survived. Well, the wolf that is fed with fear and anger and bitterness, if that's the one you continue to perpetuate and fuel, then that's the type of life you're going to live. If you're feeding the wolf within you of freedom, expansion, non-judgment, acceptance, love, self-love, all of these things, then that's the type of life you're going to live. So I think what you're really asking, which I think is so important, is that people are seekers. They want so desperately to find this happy place within themselves and also in their life, to have abundance, to have love, to feel like they belong. All of these things are universal. We all want them. That it doesn't occur outside of us until we find it within ourselves. It's so elemental, it's so basic, and it's really actually the easiest thing to find when you become really aware of where that is. So for example, like your husband, like you're sharing, here he's sprawled on the couch, the beer in the hand, yelling, watching the race. We could very much judge that and criticize, oh, he should be out cutting the lawn or this or that, or, but can we see the total joy that he's experiencing that moment? That he is, he's a hard worker. He does work other times of the day, but he can actually fully embrace himself and feel comfortable in that moment, who he is, that he owns this right. He needs this self-care time to enjoy and feel refreshed and revitalized.
I would
So,
add to that. That also they say there's no way that you can live with a psychic without becoming psychic yourself. And
I love that.
there are times that he will say to me, um, I just have this really strong feeling that such and such is going to happen. Or one time at nighttime, I used to have a dislocated arm, and in my sleep, it dislocated. In his sleep, he woke up, put my arm back in place, started using medical jargon, and then went right back to sleep. So
I love it.
when you say past life connection, there absolutely is one, and I do believe that each personally we have to get in contact with that past life mission lesson that we are to learn in this life. Cynthia, in the short amount of time we have, um, what is your website?
It's a few different ways you can get there, but it's my name, Cynthia, Cynthia Mazzaferro, Mazzafferro.com. You can also get there through my book, Powerful Beyond Measure book.com. And my Facebook page is The Power Within, right? We all want the power within. And then my name's Cynthia Mazzaferro. Love to have you stop by. And every weekend, usually a Saturday or Sunday, I always post what I call soul messages. It's a beautiful collage of 4 images. And what you do is you look at the 4 images and you pick A, B, C, or D. And I've already written an inspirational, intuitive message that has come to me for each image. And your soul is going to direct your sight to one of those images. And you pick it. You declare, I'm picking image A. And you go to the link that's provided and you read that message. And this message is your soul talking to you what you need to focus on for the week. So it's amazing. I have over 7,000 people that have just from the beginning of this year that have participated in that. And the emails I get back saying, how did you know? I didn't know what you needed to hear, but your soul wants you to understand its wisdom and help you along your journey, your spiritual journey. And it's an amazing place to be. And I encourage all of you, check me out, come to my website. And if you want to email me, you can email me at info@cynthiamazzaferro.com. And
Cynthia,
be happy to
Cynthia,
talk with you.
I'm sorry, do you want to say a quick hi to a caller?
Sure, I'd love to.
This is Sandy. We've got 3 minutes, honey. So,
okay, great. Hi, Sandy.
Oh, hello. I have to say, Anne Marie, you should write a book, and the cover should be The Psychic and the Republican. What a great name for a book.
Thank you.
I love that, Sandy.
I do want to quickly...
do you have anything that you want to ask, Cynthia?
Yes, I wanted to add something. I did. Okay, I really wanted to add something quickly. Over the time of knowing you, Anne-Marie, and rereading and keeping myself on track, one thing I found that I do after I read that, which is helping me a lot, is I sit quietly and I say, I am safe with all my emotions. I am safe with my past. I am safe. And I repeat that about 3 times. That coupled with the good words that I get from you, I'm telling you, I'm doing fantastic, and maybe it would help somebody else out there to sit there and say, I am safe with all my emotions. I am safe with my past. I am safe. It really calms you down.
Sandy, thank you for calling in, number one, and thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad you're enjoying my book. But what I'd like you to do is shift one little thing, because I just pulled a card for you. And your card is, I'm using Doreen Virtue's card, the goddess cards, is Irene. And
Love
it's
that
the goddess card. It says peace. So what I'd like you to say is, I am peaceful with my emotions. Because when you say safety, the opposite of safety is unsafe. And so what I'd like you to do is to maybe just shift that a little bit and saying, I am at peace with my emotions. Do you feel a different energy with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm going to add my card, which is the card of opportunity, which says, after you do what Cynthia says, then take advantage of the opportunity and blessing that is presented to you for doing what Cynthia says. Okay.
And so just to expand on what Anne-Marie's card was, which is really important, these go together, because when you say safe,
48 seconds.
when you're safe, you have the ability to go forward. but I'd rather you to take the safety part out because you know you're safe. You're protected by the universe. So be at peace and move forward.
Bye, Cynthia.
Thank you so much. I know that you guys have to go. And again, Anne Marie, you're the best. Thank
Bye,
you.
Sandy. Blessings.
Psychic radio, holistic radio, spiritual radio. This is achieveradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/achieveradio.